Clearly, so many questions, so much uncertainty in the UK following the developments we've been watching. Paul McGrade is here to help us navigate through some pretty complicated stuff. He's a senior counsel on Brexit at Lexington Communications, a public affairs and communications agency based in the UK. Paul, welcome. What are the likely outcomes here, and what are the options for Theresa May, assuming she survives this no-confidence vote?
Well, I think we probably have to look past tonight's vote. Everyone's expecting that the government will win, that Theresa May will stay in office because the Northern Ireland Democratic Unionist Party, who give the government their majority here in London, will back her, and her own party will too. So we got to get through this this big kind of dramatic, but probably foregone conclusion vote tonight before we can turn back to what her options really are. And your London correspondent was saying earlier that we will know on Monday what her plan B is. I'm not so sure that we'll know that on Monday. On Monday, she has to come back to Parliament and say what she's going to do next. But that could be just about process. She could say, I'm talking to people across the Parliament from the different parties, and we will work out a way forward. That's all that she's got to say on Monday. In terms of what that way forward looks like, it's very hard to see now, after the historic defeat last night, how there is a majority for getting this deal, or really any deal, through without votes from the main opposition Labour Party. It doesn't look like there's a path to ratifying this deal purely based on the ruling Conservative Party and the DUP, who completely reject any deal that has a so-called backstop applying to Northern Ireland to prevent a hard border in Ireland. Well, so if that stays true...
Well, I was just going to ask, you know, considering what the Prime Minister has gone through, the largest defeat for a sitting government ever in the UK, can she even remain in her post as Prime Minister?
Well, again, as you heard earlier, normally, in normal times, the Prime Minister would be gone after a defeat of that scale or anything like it on their flagship policy. But these aren't normal times, and Theresa May is being used, if you'll excuse the expression, as a kind of human shield by her own party to try and get Brexit through. They know it's a hugely divisive policy. They know that the numbers aren't there in Parliament for any kind of hard Brexit. So they hope that she will front up the difficult decisions that are needed to get a Brexit deal through, and then take the rap for that and probably stand down before long afterwards. She's already had to promise that she won't lead the party into the next UK general election in order to survive a confidence vote just within her party before Christmas. So her options are pretty limited here, but I think she will get to take this forward. The problem for her is going to be that in reaching out to the opposition Labour Party, which she's promised to do, she risks losing some of her own backbench support, her own party support, and maybe some of her ministers from her cabinet. Because if she makes a play, for example, to get Labour support by softening her Brexit deal, in other words, looking for a closer deal with the EU in terms of future trade, then she risks a split in her own party and pressure to step down.
Now let's go back to our guest, Paul McGrade. Paul, the British Prime Minister, bruised, defeated, but still standing.
Yeah, but she might be thinking about the words of the 19th century Duke of Wellington after the Battle of Waterloo. The only thing worse than losing a battle, he said, is winning a battle. And she's now got to go on as the Prime Minister and try and put together some sort of cross-party consensus in a very divided Westminster Parliament on some kind of Brexit deal that can command a majority of MPs on both sides of the House. And that's going to be an incredibly difficult balancing exercise, and it's very hard to see how she gets that majority without splitting her own party.
And in talks with the EU officials, what do you think she's going to ask for?
Well, I think there's nothing she can ask for yet until she can point to some compelling evidence that there's a settled view in Westminster, something that will pass Parliament. So she's first got to be able to get that kind of deal among Labour and the other opposition parties to form a majority for some version of this deal, which almost inevitably will be a softer Brexit, which causes difficulties with her own party. She can't go back to Brussels until she's got a credible story to tell about how she can get this deal through.
And we also heard from opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn, and he really made a point here saying that the government must remove any possibility of a no-deal Brexit.
Yeah, that's right. And there is a majority against any no-deal Brexit in the House of Commons, not least because there are quite a few Conservative MPs in Theresa May's own party who would vote against their own government if it tried to go down that road. The question isn't about what you want, it's about what you choose. And the parliamentarians in Westminster have to not just want to avoid a no deal, they have to choose a deal. And now they've got to choose either her deal, which was defeated by historic proportions last night, or they've got to choose probably a softer version of it that might command support from the Labour Party as well.
And Paul, so much of the opposition to Prime Minister May's divorce deal was about this backstop. Can you explain to us why this was so controversial?
There's a little bit of tactics going on here. Some of her own party have used the backstop as a sort of stick to beat her with, because they say it would keep the UK tied to the European Union's rules in perpetuity. But the people who really oppose it are the Northern Ireland Democratic Unionist Party, whose 10 votes gave her majority tonight. The government majority was 19. If their 10 votes had gone the other way, the government would have lost and we'd be facing an election. And they're opposed to it because they think it would, over time, separate Northern Ireland in terms of the laws that apply there from Great Britain, from the rest of the UK. But I think when you look at the wider Parliament, there's probably not the same kind of opposition to the backstop. I don't think the solution will be found by trying to remove the backstop, which, as we heard earlier, there's no question of the EU27 doing anyway.
All right, we'll leave it there. Paul McGrade, thank you so much.